Hello everyone, long time no see. It has been another year, and we have made quite a bit of progress. In this video, I am going through everything that happened this year in relation to the game, from actual progress to changes in media. We have a lot to cover, so let's get started. So let's first take a look at everything that happened before this year, just to get some perspective. I'll keep this brief because last year I already made a video about this. It is not the best, but if you want a more thorough look, then please watch that. So, first video, 1 level, 2 bosses. That level is half of the demo. The year after that video published, I made 3 other dungeons, along multiple bosses, areas, and improvements to older things. The last of those 3 dungeons was the first shard dungeon. What shard dungeon means doesn't really matter, it's just a type that makes more sense in game. For reference, think of something like child and adult dungeons from Ocarina of Time. A shard dungeon is kind of like an adult dungeon. The plan for the game is to have 5 of these shard dungeons. The first took me around 3 months to make, so my estimate was that I would finish the other 4 dungeons in the following year. I haven't hit that goal, but more about that later. We also had 12 boss fights in the game. Boss fights are a big part of the game, and also a good way to show you the progress in terms of content that has been made, as we almost doubled the boss roster. This is the short of it of what I had at the start of the year. For more details, watch last year's video. Now let's get to the new stuff. I mentioned that I didn't hit my goal, but by how much? Well, a whole dungeon, which is roughly 3 months of delay if we consider the original plan. Yeah, things kind of spiraled out of control. Remember the boss I mentioned would take me a month to make? That was meant as a joke, but tracking the time, it really took me a whole month. Sadly, it is not as good as I wanted it to be, but I decided to cut my losses. Even with cutting losses, these dungeons have become way bigger than anything that came before. To give some perspective, I once made a video where I played the current version of the demo as fast as possible. The demo was the first 2 levels of the game. A level being everything from the end of one dungeon to the end of the next. That video was roughly half an hour. That is the same time the second shard dungeon takes me to beat, even if I go as fast as possible. The third shard dungeon is either going to be the best thing ever or this game's water temple. A lot was planned for the dungeons, and that reflects in their size, but a lot of this was cut as well. I wanted the game to have a lot of spectacles, but I realized that a lot of them would hinder combat or dungeon crawling. The grapple animation that shows mini battle scenes might look cool, but not if you retrying the boss for the 20th time and you have to wait for it to finish before starting phase 3. Or a gimmick for a dungeon that sounds cool, but forces the player to waste a lot of time fiddling with interactables to test things out. See again why the water temple is so hated. There were also the many cases of me being incapable of making something as I imagined through the sheer lack of talent and skill. I like throwing out the term skill issue, but having to see my game spew that argument back at me has been soul-crushing a lot of the time. Game development takes a bit, so I spent a lot of time fantasizing about the later parts of the game, and now I see that they are not reaching the heights I imagined. Of course, nearly nothing is how I first imagined it, but it still hurts because I expect more of myself. I am trying to learn to let it go, especially seeing how much content I am making just to pass the bare minimum. I made 12 new bosses this year, with some easily surpassing even the craziest shit I pulled before tenfold. On the not completely new front, we have the updated tutorial and demo. I tried to hammer home the need for parrying while also making the learning curve slightly more forgiving. It wasn't enough for some. This one comment made me dread having this man enter the main game and realize that the mini-boss hits just as hard and has just as many moves as a basic enemy and just as slightly more health. The tutorial could be improved, but for now it is good enough. Of course, along the tutorial came many more quality of life updates that were added to the main game as well. One of these was the experimental controller support. Currently, I don't advertise the game as having controller support, but if you plug in a controller, then the game will recognize it and switch over. Some things don't work or have not been tested, and no matter how I set the buttons, it just does not feel right. It could be that it is just a case of fighting 2 years worth of muscle memory, but this just feels wrong. Lastly, I wanted to add that I have also been working on the tools. I want every tool to be useful for the whole adventure, so I added mechanics that keep them relevant until the end. Some are experimental, and they will probably change all the way to the end, But because I am currently making the in-game content specific for those tools, it's important that they are fully realized. We are really reaching the endgame now, as I am missing one dungeon, the end of the prologue, and the final level in terms of the big goals now. So, that means we are almost done, right? No! You see, we have the dungeons, the puzzles, the weapons, but you know what we are missing? The fucking road. Yeah, imagine if you just had Jabba Jabu without Zora's Domain or River. How do you get there? You fucking don't. Not without some speedrunner warp glitch. I get there through a cheat menu, and you sure as hell ain't gonna see me give that to players. The game currently is just these patches of content, islands if you will, in a sea where the player does not have a boat. All these patches of water will of course become land, but that is something I need to make. I try to make this at least somewhat reachable at first by giving you a very scuffed way of reaching somewhere. But the longer I developed, the more I realized I will have to keep it for later. It is currently impossible to reach the 3rd and 4th shard dungeon. Not that you can beat it, seeing as it is also impossible to get the item necessary to beat both of these. After I finish the big things like the final dungeon, the final level, and the end of the prologue, I will work on having a working minimum viable product. What that means is basically only the most essential things needed for the player to play the game from start to finish. So no mini-games, no side quests, nothing optional. I am 100% certain that I will have a working minimum viable product by the end of next year. The question is how much time I will have after finishing that MVP in the year. I am still undecided if I want an early access release. With how big the game has become, the hunt for bugs and exploits is becoming increasingly harder for me to do alone. The demo proved as much. It's just that I have a massive hate boner for early access, and my pride is not easily swallowed. If I did an early access, then I would probably sell the game at half price until the full release. Depending on how things go, I could possibly be done in 2025. The reason why I still keep it on 2026 is to give myself wiggle room. I set the hard deadline that the game will release no later than October 22nd, 2026, just to have a cutoff point. Whatever isn't finished by then just gets cut. I will keep post-launch support for bugs, but no new content. I also spend a lot of time on other aspects of the game, mainly marketing and setting up a very special page. I promised I would make a Steam Coming Soon page, and here we are. Holy fucking shit, was it stressful to make. First, the tax info that I needed to send to Steam, which made me feel like I was doing a crime. Then setting everything up, which made me feel like this was some all or nothing decision that will determine the rest of my life, while all I did was decide on the tags of my game. Then came making the trailer, which took way longer than I hoped it would, and thankfully it turned out average. That is not me saying it. That is a professional game trailer maker guy saying it. I think the reason why this was so stressful for me was because it gives me a feeling of finality that is at once motivating as it is suffocating. This is it. There is no going back. I feel as I watch this store page. I also promised that I would join the next upcoming Steam Next Fest, but because of real-life responsibilities, I couldn't attend. This is the same reason why I did not upload this video on the 22nd of October. I think I'm going to wait a bit more for that Steam Next Fest, maybe until I have that minimum viable product ready. The Steam page is a great resource to determine engagement. Previously, I had to go off media views. At the time of writing, I have amassed 630 wishlist. That is a lot more than I was expecting. I was expecting 8 or maybe the exact amount of people in my Discord server. You could say that this means if I sell the game at €10, which I plan to, and after Steam takes the 30% cut, then I will earn more than €4,000. Not exactly. I do not want to sound ungrateful, but wishlists rarely translate to sales one-to-one. I expect the sales to be somewhere around 1% of all wishlists, and that is if I am lucky. Except of a resource to see engagement, it is also a great tool of getting engagement, and this is where we get to the next point. This is the part of the video where I metaphorically suck the dick of everyone that has shown off my game in any way, shape, or form. One hand washes the other, as they say. I'm going to go in the order of release. First is Gina, God bless her soul. She is a YouTuber who streamed the demo way back. She wasn't that great at the game, so just for her, I made an easy mode and even themed it after her, because I thought no one else would play this fucking game. It took me releasing the Steam page for her to try again, and she got further, although still didn't finish the demo. No hard feelings, it's just not her kind of game, but she did get a lot of eyes on it. In the wait of her picking Iridescent back up again, I accidentally became a regular and often watch her streams mid-developing. Check her out. The second on our list is the man, the myth, the legend, the official record holder of the fastest time of anyone beating the Iridescent demo because he is the only one who recorded their playthrough. The Gigachad Kaizen. Man, watching those streams and watching him struggle and eventually complete the demo was one of the most satisfying things that ever happened to me while developing the game. He made me realize that there is a spelling or grammatical error in every fucking text box I have written. He also made me realize that my estimates of how long it takes to beat the game mean fuck all, as he spent nearly 6 hours to beat the older demo, and that was with my help to solve some of the puzzles. At the time, I thought the demo would take no longer than an hour. I'm not saying he is a bad player. I am saying that the new player experience differs a lot from how I play. Please check him out. He plays obscure as well as well-known games on stream. There was also Lattice Gaming, who made a video about the demo on YouTube. He was a lot less positive, but I highly value his feedback. Check out his other videos, as he plays a lot of obscure games and is a great way to find new games. The biggest help I got in terms of exposure, though, is from Next Indie. It is a channel dedicated to showing off upcoming indie games, and they have approached me to be part of their next Indie Direct of 2024. My game was shown off alongside actually good games, and that really spiked my wish list and other social media followers. I have a love-hate relationship with Next Indie. On one hand, they are a great resource to look at other indie games. On the other hand, looking at all these indie games makes me feel extremely depressed because they all look so much better than Iridescent. Shit like Nine Souls looks amazing and probably is, but fuck me does it make me feel bitter because it probably does everything Iridescent does but better while also looking way better. Look at this shit. No one is going to make videos like that about Iridescent. This is going to be the standard for Iridescent. Sorry, I'm getting depressed again. My work and free time not spent on making the game is as balanced as the Russian elections. Anyways, all the links to all these wonderful people that picked up the game are in the description. I wasn't just idly waiting for others to pick the game up though. I was actively trying to make content of my own. Some videos even blew up a bit. It seems YouTube has an allowance of letting 2 videos per year really blow the fuck up for some reason, but hey, I'll take it. Most of my social media accounts nearly doubled in follower count. There were even a lot of people saying a lot of nice things about the game, which makes me feel even more depressed because I will never be able to meet their expectations. Damn, another year. More than last year's video, I wanted to use this segment to reflect a bit on everything. I knew coming in that this project would take me roughly 4 years to finish, but it is different saying than experiencing it. Now that we are definitely more than halfway there, it is weird to think that I am closer to the end than I am the beginning of something that has practically consumed my life for the past 2 years. I make no secret of the fact that this project has given me its fair share of grief and frustration. Not helped by the fact that my real life also has its fair share of events that need my attention. I can't help to feel I am disappointing everyone around me. At first, it wasn't that bad. It was just my stupid game that no one is going to play anyways. Now that it is hitting me that at least some people are going to play this and, God forbid, pay money for it, the feeling I'm disappointing them grows stronger. At the time of writing, I have 11 people in my Discord. Some are friends while others were strangers before they joined the Discord. They are amazing people, and some have even tried to contribute to the game. The thought of giving these people this pile of shit that I have bashed my skull against for the last 2 years fills me with dread. On some level, I understand that it comes with the territory. Creators of any kind, be it film, picture, or music, have to put some of themselves into their work. Knowing yourself with all the imperfections makes it difficult to showcase all those imperfections for the world to see, even though they might not mind or even notice. Games like Dark Souls 1 or Majora's Mask have had massive problems and rushed parts, yet are extremely beloved. I bet that the people who made Lost Izalith have cringed so hard their skulls started cracking at the mere thought of people actually having to fight the bed of chaos. I can't even imagine how jarring it must have been to see that become such a classic for these developers. What has not helped me whatsoever is the other indie developers. I touched on this before, but holy fuck, actually playing games is becoming increasingly harder for me the further I am in this project. When so much time of the day is spent developing or thinking about the game, then it is hard to turn that off when I am playing other games. Once it was a great way to look for inspirations and seeing what I can steal. Games like Sekiro, Darksiders 2, and Fury have all contributed to elements of Iridescent, and I believe it was for the better. Now that the game is more finalized, I steal less and compare more. Comparison is the theft of joy, as they say, but I prefer the saying comparison is the shit that makes me depressed. My art is not that good. My music will never get this good. This boss is better than anything I ever made. This is better weight than I have ever animated. The game would be way better in 3D. Scratch that I just suck at 2D design. God fucking damn it, the unique hook was done better elsewhere. Is it even going to be that unique when the game releases? My designs are not that appealing. What is even the point? The point in my case is that I like doing it. I like being in my little bubble where all there is me and my ideas coming to life, however scuffed that life might be. It just makes me wonder if I even want others to play it at this point. This isn't me canceling the project, God forbid. It is just a page on what goes through my head when I can't fall asleep right before a night shift. That 2026 release date is still set in stone, possibly an early access build in late 2025. For now, I'm going to start on that 5th shard dungeon. I hope everyone will stay tuned for whatever happens next. Thank you for watching, and I hope I will see you next time.